Hello everyone. This is a video lecture for the second part, testing. So I believe that you still remember what we have done in the previous department, basically assembling department. So now after those cell phones are manufactured, they will be transferred to the next department, testing. Okay, once they finish the testing, then they can be put on the market for sale. So there are a few things I want you to be aware of, okay, because this is quite different from the part one, when you only have one assembly department from the scratch, the raw materials, all the way to the products. Here we're looking at something very different. Okay, so let me go through the details with you first before we look at a particular example. So first of all, the previous department costs, okay, whatever costs they carry, are introduced in the beginning, just like direct materials, and we call that transferred in costs. So when a particular cell phone is manufactured and transferred into the testing department, then it carries transferred in costs, 100% complete. Okay, so that's very clear. And the second assumption is conversion costs are introduced evenly through the testing process. Okay, so conversion costs normally we consider manufacturing overhead and direct labor. So these costs, we assume that they are introduced evenly through the testing process. Could be 20%, could be 50%, could be 90%, depending on the scenarios. Okay. So finally, once those cell phones they pass the tests, required tests, then they are ready for sale. And before they are transferred, moved into the warehouse, okay, we are going to package those cell phones. So therefore, there are some additional costs we have to consider, namely direct materials costs for packaging reason. Okay, and those costs are introduced in the final step. Therefore, as long as a cell phone is still in the testing department, then the completion of these costs actually is 0%. Okay, 0%. Because only cell phones that are still under testing, okay, will not have the package, because they don't have the packages. Therefore, we consider that, okay, that's a 0% completion of the packaging costs. Okay, so that's the basic whole idea. And I think this flow chart will give you a pretty good idea that you start with the assembly department, then you have a transferring costs. So cost flow into the testing department. So here you're looking at a 0% or 100%. So if they are transferring to the testing department, then 100% complete transferring cost. Then you have conversion cost added evenly during the process. We're looking at direct labor and the manufacturing overhead. Finally, we're looking at also 100% or 0%. So either 0% or 100%. If they are still in the testing department, then 0% for direct materials packaging. If they pass the test, they are transferred to the finished goods inventory, then they are 100% complete with the direct materials costs packaging. So therefore, we're looking at the two special costs here, 100% or 0%, here 0% or 100%. And this one actually is big spectrum from 0 to 100%. So we're looking at a more continuous possibility. But here it's like a binary. So either 100% or 0%. Also, by the end of the process, in the final step, either 100% or 0%. So this is the whole idea of the testing department. Okay. So now let me go to the case 4. The case 4, we are going to take a look at a particular example, and this example actually is the extension of the previous slides. So we're looking at the second department, the testing department now. So again, I'm going to start with the weighted average method. So XYZ testing department has 240 units in WIP in February, and we have the completion and cost. So TI 100% for sure, we know that that's for those 240 units left in the WIP with the testing department. So TI 100% completion, and they carry $33,600 cost. Direct material 0% $0. Well, why? obvious because of the 24 240 units in WIP, they have not passed any test yet. So we're not going to package them. So for the direct materials, for packaging reason, completely zero. Conversion 62.5% and carry $18,000 cost. Alright, so the 400 units are transferred in during March. Okay, and because during March we know that in the previous slide we know those numbers. So once the 400 units are transferred, they carry 52,000 costs and transferring costs, and the costs here are added 100% completed. Okay, so I think this is pretty straightforward here. And during March, and the testing department, applied direct material cost, the packaging cost, for about $13,200, and the conversion costs about $48,600 in addition to all the costs above. Okay, then 440 units are completed and sent to finished goods inventory. Then 200 units left in WIP after March. Okay, and there's some information given for transferring costs, always 100% whenever they left in the WIP. DM always 0%. Conversion 80%, and this number is based on the estimate that these managers they make. Whatever estimate they make, that's going to be the percentage they're going to take. Unlike TI and DM, they are more objective. The conversion, the percentage of completion for conversion is more subjective sometimes. May contain a lot of errors. I'm not going to mention this very much, but you do have one project about this conversion issues, which I'm going to give you a couple of weeks from now. Okay, so we are looking at a weighted average method. So to keep consistency, I'm going to use all the numbers in the previous from the previous assembly department. Okay, under weighted average method as well. Okay, so so therefore don't be surprised that I'm using weighted average method consistently in assembly department and the testing department. Then we'll go to the FIFO later. I'm going to use also the numbers in assembling and testing departments, and also the FIFO method. So I will keep that consistency. So I guess most of you remember what to do in the next. So first of all, you have to look at find the physical units and also equivalent units. Okay, so for the weighted average, keep one thing in mind. The principle is the cost and equivalent units will all work down to date. So we'll look at actually a fresh start. So we blend everything together, unfinished and finished. Okay, so it's a very blended method. Equivalent units, we're going to consider the beginning WIP, whatever number of units left, we're going to consider them. Okay, and the units completed and transferred, of course. Then the ending WIP. So we're going to find the equivalent units out of each group. Then we're going to add them together and we blend them. The cost and each cost category, we don't separate them, we also blend them. So we add whatever costs actually applied. Then we add them together. So we look at a total cost. We divide the total cost by those total equivalent units to figure out the unit cost. So that's how you do the weighted average. So let's take a look at our class example. So if you still remember the previous two slides, we started with 240 units, then 400 units are transferred in, then together we have 640 units. Okay, 640 units, and 440 units are completed and transferred out during current period, and 200 units left. And we do have the percentage completion information. Okay, and also we have the percentage of completion information in the beginning and end. So we do have all this information. So because we're using the weighted average method, so basically for completed and transferred out during the current period for 40 units, we are going to look at consider them 100%. So we blend them. Some might be left over, some might be current. Okay, might be from the current production or current testing. I don't specify them, but I would consider 440 completely. Okay, I don't have first in first out, this kind of special treatment here. So basically I just blend them. 440. Okay, they are all 100%. Okay, 100%. Then I'm going to deal with the WIP ending inventory separately. I'm going to use the given percentage of completion for each different cost. So for TI, we're looking at a 200 for sure. Okay, it's 100%. So you have 200 units left. So you have to consider 200 equivalent units in the WIP ending. For the direct materials, it has to be 0% because we talked about if those cell phones are under test, then we're not going to package them. So they are not ready for sale. So therefore, we are not going to apply any packaging materials. So no cost for packaging materials. So therefore, it's going to be 0%. So the number of equivalent units is going to be 0. That's simple. For the conversion cost, so it's given 80%. So we're going to use that number directly. So we get 160 here. So you add them together. We're looking at total equivalent units under each category. So transferring cost 640 and 440 for direct materials and 600 for conversion costs. Now the next is going to be we'll find out total costs under each category. Then we're going to find the unit cost. Okay. So here this is the steps 3, 4, 5. That's what we have. So we have a 51,600. That's cost in the beginning. Then we have some extra costs. Okay. So this is what we have. So the transferring costs, okay, in the beginning, this is actually from the it's given in the previous slides. If you go back here, that's what you get. You have a 33,600. You have 18,000. So that's the numbers you have. Okay. So now you are going to have transferring costs additionally 52,000. Okay, 52,000. So these are from the 400 units just transferred, and because transferring costs are applied in the very beginning, so there is no need to let testing department apply extra costs. So they're done. For direct materials, I think because you have some I think about 440 units completed and transferred out to the finished goods inventory. So the testing department has applied 13,200. That's also a given number. If you go to the slide here, that's the cost applied. Okay, and also conversion cost 48,600. So you put all these numbers in those places, and you're gonna find a total cost to account for and each cost category. Then you pull out the step 2 right here with those number of equivalent units. Okay, put them here. Then you look at unit cost. So it's pretty easy calculation. I'm not going to read those numbers, but that's what you have. So now you are going to figure out the costs. Okay, the costs. So first of all, you can take a look at the 440 units that are completed and are transferred out to the finished goods inventory. So we're looking at 440 units multiplied by this unit cost, and same number multiplied by the unit cost of direct materials and the unit cost of conversion cost respectively. So you have all these 3 elements here. Then you do have the work in process, so the ending 200 units, and be careful that you're going to use the 200 160 to figure out the cost left in the WIP and inventory within the testing department. So you're going to have 200 multiplied by the same unit cost, and because here is a 0, you get a 0 there, and you have 160, which is not 200 because of 80% of completion. So 160 multiplied by 111, it will give you the cost in any inventory. So therefore, you can actually add those costs together. So in your balance sheet, these are the numbers you're going to apply. Okay, in the finished goods inventory, you have to post a debit, right? And the WIP in the balance sheet, you are going to report this $44,000 and $510 in your balance sheet. So this is about the weighted average method. Okay. So next, let's look at the FIFO. The FIFO. So the FIFO, the information we have here is quite similar to weighted average, except one number. I'm not going to repeat all these questions again. Okay, all the numbers information again. So basically, the only difference is this number. because as I said, I want to keep the consistency. So in the assembling department, if you use a FIFO method, then the 400 units will carry the $52,480. Okay, but if you're looking at the weighted average, this is the 52,000. Okay, you can see that these are the differences. Okay, so anyway, so I'm going to use the FIFO method, and now we have a different cost carried in the beginning. So all other information will remain constant, will remain same. So let's go to this FIFO method. So the FIFO method actually is basically first in, first out. Okay, it guarantees that when we calculate those costs, the left units in the beginning inventory of WIP will be processed, will be completed first and transferred out. Okay, then we start a new production or new testing. Then we're going to complete and transfer out part of the new testing or production. Then there might be some left over, okay, for the next season, for the next production season, or whatever. So this is the whole idea here, okay. So as I put it here, the beginning WIP cost will be transferred directly, then remaining degree of completion from WIP units completed and transfer any inventory. So you can see that this is quite different because we're not going to blend the beginning inventory anymore. We're going to look at, okay, for the beginning inventory, how much extra work I have to do. I'm going to consider only the equivalent units that left in the beginning inventory. I'm not going to consider all the units. So I only look at remaining degree of completion. Then the units complete and transferred. Then the ending WIP. So therefore, I'm going to only blend part of them. Okay, part of them. I only blend the remaining and the units completed, transferred, and the leftover in the ending inventory. Okay, and also I will blend some costs, but not a whole lot. Okay, then you're gonna find the unit cost and whatsoever. Okay, so this is the whole idea about the FIFO. Okay, it's a little bit extra work, but it's acceptable. So let's come back to the worksheet here. So this is what we have. So we start with 240, okay, and we have 400. So together we have 640 units. Okay. So in the beginning we have 240 units left. That's left over from the previous season. And we note that in total there are about 440 units completed and transferred out. So we would assume that and the FIFO method, the 240 units left in the beginning WIP will be processed first. So I have 240 here. Then I'm going to take a look at the new production, the new testing, another 400 units. I'm going to complete 200 of them, and I'll have 200 left in the ending inventory. So this is how you split these numbers, okay, how to group those numbers. And because this is the FIFO, I'm not going to blend the beginning inventory 240 with the 200. I'm going to actually only look at among the 240 units, the remaining work I have to complete. So therefore we have to basically have 3 different groups to work on instead of 2. So in FIFO, here is what we do. So if you look at 240 units from the beginning inventory, WIP. So what's happening here is there is no need to apply any transferring costs, any investment on that. For direct materials, yes, you do have to make sure you complete the 240 units, then you're going to package them and sell them. So the 240 units actually, 240 is the number of equivalent units you do have to consider for the packaging because the direct materials. Then you look at the conversion cost. So 62.5% are done. So you're going to look at the remaining part, which is 100% minus 62.5%. I think this is about a 37.5%. So that percentage, remaining degree of completion, multiplied by 240 will tell you, okay, equivalently, I should work on 90 units only. So I only need to invest on 90 units for the conversion cost. That's it. So then you take a look at the 200 units that are started and completed. Apparently, that's the easy part because they start from 0% to 100% through, during the process, during the production and testing. So I'm looking at 200 for each, everywhere 1%. For the ending inventory, I started with the 200 units. That's leftover in this current production period. So for this 200, transferring cost 100% for sure. Then the direct materials 0% for sure, because you know that, okay, if they're still in the WIP any inventory, they're not done yet, no need to put any packaging materials, so no any cost like that. For the conversion cost, depending on the estimate of percentage completion, here we're looking at 80%. So if we multiply 80% by 200, that's how you come up with the 160. So now you come up with the number of equivalent units of work done in current period. So we're looking at 400 and 440 and 450. So you can tell that these numbers are so different from the the previous method, the weighted average. Okay, so there is a reason, you know, that because we don't blend them. So that's the work we have to be careful with. So once you figure out these numbers, we can take a look at how to find out the unit cost and the testing cost, and eventually the total manufacturing cost carried by each product. So here is what do we look at. Okay, so definitely you can take a look at the summary of the costs. Okay, and this is not different. This is not different from what you have under the weighted average. So I'm not going to read these numbers again, but it's exactly the same summary of those cost analysis. So now let's figure out what total cost we should use. Okay, what number of equivalent units we should use. So for the transferring costs, okay, you are going to take a look at only this is 52,480, the 400 units transferring. Okay, so you're going to divide that by 400 because the 33,600 transferring costs are done already. So we're looking at the remaining completion. So remaining completion, we're looking at 400 units. Okay, so here we're looking at 200 plus 240. So we're looking at 440. So that's exactly this number here. The cost applied is 13,200. Okay, that's straightforward because that's a given number. For the conversion cost, the cost added in current period is 48,600. So I'm going to apply the 48,600 on the 450, the number of equivalent units for this conversion cost only. So forget about 18,000. Okay, forget about 18,000. Yeah. So you can see that the costs applied are less than the previous weighted average method because we use the less cost, we don't blend them. Also, the number of equivalent units is also a lot smaller because we don't blend them. We only consider the remaining completion part. So you can see that we use a smaller cost divided by smaller number, so which is quite different from the weighted average method. So now let's come to the final analysis. So first of all, when we take a look at the assignment of costs, we still divide them into 3 groups instead of 2 groups. Okay, which is basically the weighted average method uses. So here we're looking at 3 different groups. The 240 units, the leftover from the previous season in the weighted average, in the WIP beginning inventory. So all these costs will be put here. So basically you copy this row and down here. Now let's take a look at what additional costs we're going to apply, okay, to these 240 units in order to complete these 240 units. Okay, so we're looking at there's no need for transferring costs, but we do have to invest on 240 units. Okay, so for the packaging materials, so we have that component here, and we do have to invest part of a conversion cost, which is a 90 multiplied by 108. So that's how you get this 16,920. So you add them together, this will tell you all the costs, okay, all the costs actually carried by these 240 units. Now let's take a look at the 200 units that are started and completed, eventually transferred out. So these are pretty fresh, okay, fresh. So you look at 200 units multiplied by the unit cost and each category, then you add them together. That's how you replicate this number, 53,840. So here you add this 68,520 to 53,840. That's how you come up with the total cost units completed and transferred out. So you're gonna post a debit, okay, to the finished goods inventory for that amount, and meanwhile you're gonna post a credit to the WIP for this amount. So finally, let's look at the WIP ending balance. So we're looking at the remaining 200 units. So all you have to do is go back here, pull out all the number of equivalent units, and multiply each by the unit cost. That's how you figure out the ending balance in for WIP, especially for these 200 units. So you can always add all the numbers together, and this final row should be the same as the final row here. Okay, so this class example is quite straightforward, and I hope you gain insights to the FIFO and the weighted average methods. And this is a more complicated situation because now you're looking at the transferring costs from the previous department, right? Now you're looking at the testing department. So there are 3 cost components. So transferring costs added in the beginning. So it's a binary, either 100% or 0%. Now you have conversion costs evenly added, okay, over the process. Then you have the final step, which is the packaging using direct materials. So the packaging material costs are added actually also binarily, either 0% or 100%. Okay, so this is basically the part 2 for this lecture, and I hope you enjoyed this lecture. And the next video lecture we're going to talk about one particular exercise. Okay, thank you for watching.